Chief Bill Blair with me this morning, and we're going to talk about a number of things. We heard the news conference yesterday you gave. We carried it live on CBC News Network. Let's pick up the conversation with some of the things that John Lancaster reported, his sources. John has impeccable sources. And let's call up the photo that we're dealing with in question. John's saying that his sources have said they knew about an ongoing relationship between Mayor Rob Ford and the man that he is seen with in this photo. One of these men is dead, shot dead outside a nightclub, and one of the men arrested in those raids yesterday. So if they knew about the relationship, what is the nature of the relationship?
The nature of the relationship, all the information pertaining to the death of Anthony Smith or to the arrests that were made yesterday is evidence that has been gathered that can only be disclosed legally and appropriately in a court of law. And so all of the information we have that we've gathered with certain authorities that are afforded to us through the law, and the law requires that the appropriate place for disclosure of that information is in a court. And I understand the public's interest in that information, but that information will be made available in a legal format, which is in court.
One of those picked up was, as I said in the photo, was one of the 43 arrested. Yesterday, $3 million in drugs, money as well, guns as well. This was in the outcome of Project Traveler. How successful was the raid in your view?
Actually, we measure the success of the execution of those search warrants by the safety of all of the people involved, the safety of my officers going through that door, because it can be very dangerous, especially if we're dealing with people who we believe to be armed, but it also can be dangerous for the people residing in the places where those warrants are executed. And so at the end of the day, we executed about 40 search warrants province-wide, and it was done safely, and I think that's a true measure of success. With respect to the evidence that's been gathered, this is a very complex investigation. It's gone on for a very long time. We've gathered a lot of evidence. We believe that we now have a very strong case to prosecute the individuals we believe responsible for selling drugs, bringing guns, and committing violent acts in that community and around the city and even across the province and even across the country. And so to that extent, it's been successful, but it will only be completely successful if there's a successful prosecution.
At the end. But this is a neighborhood, as you mentioned. This is a situation that you had been keeping an eye on. You'd been investigating for about a year, more than a year. Why? A lot of people have wondered about the timing of this. So why move in right at this particular time when the whole area has been in the spotlight because of the allegations that have reached to the mayor's office? Was the publicity surrounding this? Was there anything about that, the publicity that it attracted, that was prompting you to make this action now?
You know, I have to tell you, absolutely not. And in fact, the publicity was a bit of a challenge for our investigators. But as they conducted this investigation, it began in 2012. In the early parts of 2012, there was a very significant spike of violence in the northwest part of the city of Toronto. We went in large numbers in uniform to try to restore a sense of safety, but in our work up there, we discovered that there was a number of individuals involved in a group we believe to be a criminal enterprise, a gang known as the Dixon Goonies or the Dixon Bloods, and we began to investigate them and to gather evidence. We have been gathering that evidence through a variety of means.
So not the immediate circumstances leading to this particular, that Toronto's talking about right now.
And with respect to why conclude it this week, it's because we have concluded that aspect of our investigation, gathered the evidence we believe is necessary to mount a successful prosecution. And we're going into the summer. We don't want to leave these people. They're involved in violent crimes. They've been involved in serious crimes such as murder and attempt murder. I don't want to leave them on the street. I will tell you, over the course of this investigation, we also apprehended many of these individuals as the project was ongoing, because our first responsibility is the safety of our people.
Come back to the evidence. You said you collected the evidence you needed. iPhones. John Lancaster's report, his details, the officers or investigators are going to be looking through cell phones. Did you seize iPhones?
Actually, we seized quite a number of digital devices. Digital information is becoming a very important part of every criminal investigation. Right. People communicate and place a lot of information, quite often information about their criminal activities on their phones, on their iPads, on their computers.
You know why I'm asking about this.
But of course, I'm speaking in more general terms.
Right, and I understand that, but as it relates to the specifics about what the City of Toronto's been talking about for weeks on end, do you have in your possession, you can tell us about, a video purportedly showing the mayor smoking what appears to be crack cocaine?
And I cannot discuss any evidence that we have gathered as a result of those search warrants, as a result of this investigation. All of the evidence that we've collected will be turned over to the Crown Attorney. Okay. All of that evidence will be disclosed in a court of law, and the public will become aware of everything that we've got in that forum, not at a press conference, and frankly, not in this discussion.
I feel like people watching us are going to feel like they were watching the news conference yesterday because you gave those answers, and I appreciate that, but I think you'll also appreciate having to ask because, I mean, even as far as the Senate expenses scandal, we know now that there's an RCMP criminal investigation underway. You've yet to say, yes, there is a criminal investigation underway. The RCMP can say that about what they're looking at for Mike Duffy and Nigel Wright, so there is a precedent right here before us today. Is there a criminal investigation underway into these allegations about Toronto Mayor Rob Ford?
There's a criminal investigation that has been conducted in this city involving the activities of guns and drugs and crimes of violence in the northwest part of our city. And I understand your questions. I understand the public's interest and concern. But the law hasn't changed since yesterday. The law is the same. And the law is very, very specific as to what can be disclosed with respect to the investigation methods that we undertake and the evidence that we collect. And to do otherwise, for me to disregard the law to satisfy your question,
I don't understand
would put a prosecution in jeopardy.
But then let me ask you this, because as people watching, there's this frustration. You won't say anything, and I can appreciate it. But you watch it, and we felt, you know, people said to me after watching the news conference yesterday, he's hanging the mayor out to dry. And it wasn't just somebody saying that, because here's the Toronto Star headline, police chief refuses to clear Mayor Ford. Do you feel that because you can't deny unequivocally that you're looking into Mayor Ford, that in fact you're ending up casting a suspicion on him?
Again, and my only intent is to ensure the safety of my city and my citizens. We conduct our investigations and we bring people that we allege to be responsible for very serious crimes before the courts. I'm not going to place that in jeopardy. It is not my role in this city to make pronouncements or to pass judgment, simply to collect the evidence and to do it according to the rule of law and to keep my city safe.
All right. You've said you're watching the case, though. You have said publicly you're watching it. Can I assume that you continue to watch the situation?
We're monitoring that situation very carefully. We have been and we will continue to do so.
Chief Blair, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. The Chief of Toronto Police, Bill Blair, with me in studio. Stay with us on CBC News Network.